Hello, so today we'll be starting with analogy. This is a fairly important chapter. If you look at the weightage, there are a lot of questions asked from this part. And what you study in this chapter can also be used for other chapters. So it's like analogy is whatever you have in analogy is very similar to what you have in the classification chapter also. So all in all, it's a pretty important chapter. So let's just get into it. Okay, so first of all, what do we mean by the word analogy, right? What we mean essentially by this word, but what we mean by analogy is basically comparison. So analogy refers to a comparison of two things to show their similarities. That's what we have in the questions. So usually what happens is that there will be a relationship that will be given between two either words or letters or numbers. That relationship will be given, and then you need to identify this relationship, and you will have one question in which you need to use that relationship in order to get an answer. Okay, when you do questions, this will be very clear. So basically it's usually of this type. They give a word, something else that is related to the word. They will give both of these, and then they will give you another word and ask you to find out the word. You need to find out this word. Okay, how do you find out this word? You look at this relationship. So from this relationship that's given, you derive this. Okay, it's not that complicated. It's pretty easy, even though the explanation might seem complicated, right? Excuse me. Yeah, so anyway, let's get into analogy. So you can broadly classify analogy into three types: word, number, and letter. Okay, so let's get into the first, that is word analogy. So what happens in most questions in word analogy is that you will have, like I said before, two words that are related to each other in a particular manner. You need to find out what that relationship is. Okay, and now this will be followed by another word and a question mark. So basically it will be of the form, there will be two words, and then there will be another word, and then instead of the relationship of this word being given, there will be a question mark. You will have to find this word. Okay, this is just the same as I explained previously, I mean just 5 minutes ago, right? So you find out this word looking at this relationship. You look at this relationship that there is between the words, and then you find out this word. Okay, so right, so this is what the candidate has to do to find the word that could replace the question mark after analyzing the relationship. This is basically what I just explained. Okay, now when you solve word analogy related questions, the thing about relations, like for example, I'll just give you a very simple example. Let's say stylus. Stylus is basically stylus pen. Do you know what a stylus pen is? It's what you use for writing on screens. Like for a phone might have a stylus pen which you can use for writing on that phone. Okay, that's what a stylus is. So for example, if you have pen, book, if they give you this relationship, and then they would ask you to find the relationship, the corresponding relationship with stylus. So how do you get this? So you know that pen, book, what is the relationship between pen and book? You use a pen to write on a book, right? So stylus is, you know, what you use for a mobile or a phone or a tablet, or like, and basically you could say an electronic device. So for stylus, the answer would be electronic device. So how did you get electronic device? You looked at what you were given, pen and book, and you analyze the relationship between them, and then you use that relationship to get this. Okay, let me switch to a more engaging color. Black seems like a very boring color. Okay, right, so anyway, that's how you get it. So in most cases, see, in this case it was easy. You just had to look at the relationship and then find out the same thing. But sometimes there will be things that you need to have known previously, like I'll show you. So that's what we're going to learn. We're going to go through just some relationships that will be useful. So one of these is knowing states and their capitals, because you might be given a state. Like for example, you will be given the question might be Assam, Dispur, and then they would give you Bihar, and then you'll have to find the capital. So you know, you might know, okay, Dispur is the capital of Assam, but you might not know the capital of Bihar, right? So in that case, it is important that you study states and their capitals. I mean, it's not a very important thing. So questions from analogy are of different types. They might not ask states and capitals, right? States and capitals is asked only once every couple of years or so. So it's not, there's nothing that this is the very important part, but I'm just saying when there are analogy related questions, some things that will be useful for you to know are these. Okay, so just go through. I've not given all the states here, just some states that I feel are important, but other states might also be asked. But generally these are the important states, right? So Assam Dispur, Bihar Patna, Gujarat Gandhinagar, Haryana Chandigarh, Jharkhand Ranchi, Karnataka Bengaluru, Kerala Tiruvananthapuram, Madhya Pradesh Bhopal, Maharashtra Mumbai, Odisha Bhubaneswar, Punjab Chandigarh, Rajasthan Jaipur, Tamil Nadu Chennai, Telangana Hyderabad, Uttar Pradesh Lucknow, Uttarakhand Dehradun, West Bengal Kolkata. So just learn these states, it will be useful. Right, so now next. Now we are moving on to quantities and their units. So this is also important. You might be given a quantity and you might have to find its unit out. So again, I've only given some important quantities. Other quantities can also be asked, but these are generally the important ones. Okay, so power, the unit of power is watt. The unit of distance is meter. And here by unit we mean SI unit. Okay, what is SI unit? The standard unit. Because distance, for example, distance can have multiple units. Centimeter is a unit, meter is a unit. So you have multiple units, right? But what we mean here is the standard unit. The unit of mass is kilogram. The unit of time is second. The unit of electric current is ampere. Okay. So just go through quantities, units, states, capitals, and all of that. It'll help you be better prepared for this part of the syllabus. Now these are not the only things, like I told you, right? So it's not, there's nothing like every year you will be asked a question from states or quantities. No, they can ask it from multiple places. They can also ask, so these are some other relationships which they focus on. Synonyms, antonyms. So basically they might give you a word which is a synonym. So for example, happiness, joy, right? I'll just reduce the thickness, give me a second. Right, so they might give happiness and joy, and then they would give sadness, happiness, joy, and they would give something like sadness, and then you would have to guess the word, what word would be corresponding to this. So it's a synonym, right, in a way. Okay, and then you might also have country and currency. So India, rupee, and then US, you'll have to guess dollar, right? Occupation and working place also. So there is a question on occupation and working place. You will see when we discuss. So basically, like, you know, a teacher works at a school, right? So similarly, where does a doctor work at? Things like that. Okay. Then animal and sound. This is also important. Just go through different animals and their sounds also. So for a dog, it is bark, but it's different for different animals, right? So you can go through, just make it a point to go through animals and sounds, because people usually know all other things like country and currency also. If it's easier ones, people might know, but animal and sound is something which I feel students generally do not know as much. So go through it. Okay, right, so that was word analogy. Now we'll do a couple of questions from this part. Okay, now teacher, school, this is the question that I told you about. Okay, so teacher, school, doctor, what? So before that, I will also explain, in case you do not know, I'll tell you what these colon mean. This is called a colon. This is called a colon. Okay, so and here you have two columns, right? So what that means is basically, okay, so for example, here you have teacher, school, and then you have two columns, and then you have doctor, and then you have one column. What this column means basically is that there is a relationship between teacher and school, okay? And then you need to use the same relationship to find out the relationship between doctor and what, right? So basically one column means you're looking at this relationship, and then two columns means basically the next thing. So this is the next thing that's given, teacher, school. So doctor will be related to what? Okay, so it's just a way of asking questions. So you know that if there's one column, these things that come under it, you need to look at this relationship, and then you need to use this relationship to find what comes after the double colon. Okay, it's just a way, it's just a usage. Nothing to be, largely worried about. Okay, so now teacher, school, doctor. ठीक है. So teacher, school, doctor, what? So teacher works in a school. What is the relationship between a teacher and a school? A school is the teacher's place of occupation. It is where the teacher works, right? So for a doctor, what it would be? It would be a hospital. It's very simple. See, similarly, you have mathematics, numbers. So history, what? So what is the relationship between mathematics and numbers? In mathematics, what you mainly have is numbers, right? So mathematics is actually called a theory of numbers because you're playing with numbers all along. That's the crux of mathematics, right? You're playing with numbers. So you need to similarly look at the crux of history. What are you playing with? What is history the theory of? Is it wars? Obviously you do learn a lot about wars, but history is not all about wars, right? You learn about peaceful periods also. So in history, if you don't have a war, that doesn't mean that part won't come in history, right? Events, yes. So history is basically about past events. It should have been written as past, but this is how the question was given. But yeah, anyway, it's about past events, which comes under events, right? So it's not anything else, it's events. It's not dates, it's not people. So yeah, it's events, right? So we've gotten that. Moving on, number analogy. So we now just went through word analogy, right? So what happens in number analogy is basically you will have numbers. Everything that we just did with word, the same thing you'll have with numbers. Numbers will be given in a pair following a particular relationship. You just need to find out this relationship and just complete the incomplete pair. That's it. Simple as that. Now, questions under number analogy can be based upon the following. What are some basic topics under which questions under number analogy come under? Addition and subtraction of numbers, multiplication and division of numbers, even and odd numbers, square, square root, and cube, cube root. Okay. So just like, for example, I'll show you addition and subtraction for if you have something like 2, 5, 6. So this is, the relation between 2 and 5. There seems to be no, it's not multiplication, it's not square. So usually it will be either square and square root. It will be not either, yeah, it will usually be under square and square root. But between 2 and 5, that's not the case, right? So you just guess ki 2 plus 3 is 5. So then if 2 plus 3 is 5, you just need to look at 6 plus 3. Right, so if 2 plus 3 is 5, we just need to look at 6 plus 3, which is 9, and then just check if 9 is there in the option. So this is an example of using addition. Coming to multiplication and division, what is an example of that? Again, see the same thing. If you have 2 and then if you have 6, okay, and then you would have 3. So 2 3s are 6. So then you would guess that this answer, we get a 9 again. So yeah, you would just guess it that way. So since it's options, you can always cross check if your answer is right. Right. And then the same thing for even and odd numbers. Then square and square root and cube root. This is where questions are usually focused on. So we will be, we have some questions on this topic, right? So complete the second pair. 36 is to 64. Just as 9 is to what? It's actually not is to, but yeah, we can say 36 is related to 64 in the way 9 is related to what? So what comes to your mind when you see 36 and 64? These are squares, right? 36 is the square of 6, 64 is the square of 8. But the thing is, it's okay. Here you have 6, here you have 8. How are these related? 6 plus 2 is 8, right? That is the relation. So now let's try using this relationship for this. So don't take 9 plus 2. Okay, you need to remember that 9 is a square of 3. We are looking at the square root. So here 36, its square root was 6. 64 square root was 8. So what we are essentially looking at is the square root. So 9 is the square of 3. So we have 3 on one side. Now try doing 3 plus 2. What do you get? You get 5. What is 5 square? 5 square is 25. Is 25 there in the option? Yes. If 25 wasn't there, you will have to try some other method, right? So since you have options, it's easy. Since 25 is there, we can be fairly sure that 25 is the right answer. Okay. Now, coming to some more examples under number analogy. 464, 5 what? So, what is the relationship between 4 and 64? Like I said, most of these questions are based on powers like squares or cubes or something. So, let's first see if there is any such relation. 4, what is 4 fours are? 4 fours are 16, right? But what about 4 cube though? What is 4 cube? 16 into 4. What is 16 into 4? 64, right? So 6 fours are 24, 2 carry, 4 ones are 4, 5, 6. So you have gotten 64. So basically what we have here is the numbers cube in cube. So for 5, we need to find 5 cube. So what is 5 cube? 5 square is 25, 25 into 5, 5 5s are 25, 2 carry, 5 2s are 10, 11, 12, 125. That's all, you have gotten 125. Now, right, coming on to example 5. Complete the second pair. 5, 36, 6 what? Okay, now this seems interesting. What is the relationship between 5 and 36? Okay, so you know what is 36? 36 is 6 square, right? So 6 squares are 36, you know that. But 5 is not the square of any natural number. Most the questions you have to deal with are all natural numbers, so you don't have to worry about, you know, decimals or anything like that, right? So, but what is 6 square? 6 square is basically 5 plus 1 square, right? So this is how you get 36 from 5. You have done 5 plus 1 whole square. So if you were to do the same thing to 6, what would you get? You would get 6 plus 1 whole square, which is 7 square. What is 7 square? 49, right? So see, this is how you do it. What have you done? You looked at 36, you figured that 36 is the square of 6. Then you looked at how to get 6 from 5, and you got the answer 5 plus 1. And then you just employed the same thinking process to 6 here, and then you got 49. Okay, as simple as that. Moving on. Now we're done with number analogy. I mean, we're not done. We have questions, we have more example questions, we have assignments and all of that. But as of now, we're done with the main part. Moving on to letter analogy. So what happens in letter analogy? Basically, questions of this type. So whatever we did for word and numbers, now we have for letters. So this will focus on either individual letters or groups of letters, but groups of letters that are not words, right? So they'll just be a group of letters, not necessarily a word. So it could be something like, you know, X, Y, P or something like that. Okay, just groups of letters. So what do you have to do? Again, the same thing. You need to find the relationship between the letters or the group of letters in the pair, and then you need to complete the incomplete pair. Okay, the pair, and then you need to complete the incomplete pair. Okay. So now the relationship between the letters may be based upon the following. Now, how do you get the relationship? Again, it could be vowels and constants. It could be addition and subtraction in the position of letters. So, okay, I'm right. So, and or it could be reverse orders or opposite pairs of letters. All these are things that I explained when we studied classification. So this is why I said that classification and analogy, the concepts are very similar, right? And this I had mentioned this. So position of letters, this is something that is very, very important. I have mentioned this before and I will say it again. So it's not just classification and analogy. The position of letters, this part comes in various topics of intelligence, right? So I've made a table just so you can, you know, go through the position of letters and not forget it, because it's very important. Right, so it can be based on the addition or subtraction in the position, or it can be based on reverse order or opposite pairs of letters. So what are opposite pairs of letters? Again, I had explained this before, but I'll just go through it again. So for A, the opposite pair is Z. For B, the opposite pair is Y. For C, the opposite pair is X, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, reverse order, what do we mean by reverse order? Again, I've explained this again, but yeah, I'll tell you. So for A, the position, instead of being 1, it would be 26. For B, the position would be 25, and so on. So Z would be the one at position 1. Okay, that's what we mean by reverse pair. Now, moving on. Right, so we come to the position of letters. What do we mean by position of letters? Let's see. We are looking at the alphabet, and then we will also be looking at their positions. Now, A is at position 1, B is at position 2, and then that's how you get all the positions, right? It's fairly simple. And just so on and so forth. So, like, again, I had mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. Just learn some, just learn 5E, J10, O15, Z26, T20, right? T20 series. Okay, so just learn it, so that if you, right, you can write all of this down, it doesn't take a lot of time, but if you don't have to, it's much easier. So for example, if you have to find G, instead of counting A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you can just think, E is at 5th position. If you have learned E, then it's just F, G. So if E is at 5th position, G is at 7th position. You can get it very easily. So that is why if you learn all the 5, the 10, the 15, the 20, and the 26, it will be much easier for you to get anything in between. So for example, say N. You know that O is at 15, right? So N will be at 15 minus 1, which is 14. Okay. So just go through these position of letters. This is important, not just for this chapter, but also for a lot of other chapters that you have under intelligence. Okay. So now we'll do some questions on letter analogy. BOQD is related to ERTG. So then how is ANPC related to, like, what is ANPC related to? So BOQD, ERTG. So let us look corresponding letter wise first, right? So how is B related to E? A, B, C, D, E, right? So there are 2 letters in between. Okay, so there are 2 letters. So, or it can be written as +3 in terms of position. B is at the 2nd position, E is at the 5th position. So it is +3, right? 2 plus 3 is 5. Now let's look at O and R. Is it the same? LMNO, P, Q, R. Similarly, you have 2 things in between. So again, it is at the +3th position. So this holds. Q and T, does it hold? LMNO, P, Q, Q, R, S, T. Yes, again, +3. D, N, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. +3, right? So this is basically the pattern here is +3. So for A, it would be B, C, D. Okay, so you can rule both of these out. Now, right, so now for N, it will be element O, P, Q. So that's DQSF, right? So you don't have to go through all the letters, because you know that this can be ruled out. So it's going to be DQSF. Okay, now complete the second pair. N is to 14. So in that way, what is P related to? So how is N related to 14? Whenever you have a number of this sort with a letter, you can guess that would be the position of the letter. Okay, so we'll just, 1 second. Yeah. If you look at the position of, where did we go? Just give me a second. Yeah. So see, the position of N is 14, right? So this is also, see, if you learn the positions of 5, 10, 15, this would have been very easy for you to check. So you just need to think, okay, O is at position 15. So N will be at position 15 minus 1, which is 14. Okay. Now you need to know what position P is at. So what do? You do not have to count everything. You know that P, element OP, right? So if N is at 14, P will be at 16. 14, 15, 16, right? So you can just relate P to N. You've got P at 16. That's it, and you're done. Okay. Now we have another concept in analogy. This you don't usually find in guides, but I felt that I had to add this as a concept, because you have couple of questions asked from this concept in itself, right? So this concept is called comparative height. Basically, what you have in questions of this type is that you have heights of certain people, which is given on a comparative basis, and you need to analyze which candidate is required. So like you need to analyze which of these people is at what position, or like who is the tallest or who is the shortest, or something of that sort. I'll show you. We'll just go through 2 questions. This is a previous year question, 2023. Okay, what do you have? A, B, C, and D are 4 friends. A is shorter than B but taller than C. So when you have things like this, it's always good to draw. Right, so A is shorter than B. So this is a good way of drawing it, right? So you have B, just draw an A which is shorter than B. But A is taller than C. So draw a smaller C. Okay, C is shorter than D. So now the problem with this is you cannot see if C is shorter than D, you cannot draw, you don't know how tall D is, right? So D might be, you just know that C is shorter than D, but this D might be here, as in, D might be taller than C but shorter than A, or D might be taller than both C and A, or D might be the tallest, right? So you just know that C is shorter than D. You do not know which of these which of these is D, right? So in that case, what you do, just draw it separately. So like go here, well, draw here. Just draw CAB. This we know for sure, right? Now for D, just draw it separately so that you have it there, but you don't mix it with this figure. Okay, who is the shortest among all? This is very simple. It's C. Okay, I'll just take you through how we got it again in case you are confused. So all you do is, you know that A is shorter than B, right? So you draw an A and then draw a B which it is shorter than. Basically a B that is taller than A. Okay, so you've gotten this. Now A is taller than C. So then A would come here. A is taller than C. So C is shorter than A. Now since C is shorter than A and A is shorter than B, C is shorter than all of these, right? Now you also know that C is shorter than D. So what happens? C becomes the shortest amongst these, right? That's as simple as that. Now, John, Mark and Sarah are three friends standing in a line. Okay, John, again, I'll draw here. You have John, Mark and Sarah. You have that John is taller than Mark. So we'll draw a big J and a small m. Okay, but shorter than Sarah. Okay, so Sarah will come here. Now, if Mark is taller than 150 centimeter, so we'll just draw a mark here. For Mark, we'll draw a mark for Mark at 150 centimeter. You know that Mark is taller than 150 centimeter. Which of the following statements is true about the heights of John and Sarah? John is shorter than Mark. This we know is false. See, all we need to do is just look at the figure. So whenever you read questions of this kind, always make figures immediately and just look at the figures. Otherwise, you would just read these and then forget and then have to look again at the question. Don't go through all of that. Just draw figures. So for questions of comparative height, what is important is that you draw figures. Okay. Now, John is taller than Mark but shorter than Sarah. Is that true? Yes, we know that John is taller than Mark and shorter than Sarah. You just have to look at the figure. And also, if you look at the question, it's actually given in the question. It's given right here. John is taller than Mark but shorter than Sarah. So it's just taken right from the question. Then if you want, you can just cross-check with the other two options. John is taller than Sarah. We know it's false. John is the tallest among three. Again, false. Sarah is the tallest, right? So we have done with comparative height also. That was it for analogy. There's not, see, for intelligence chapters, generally, there is not much theory. What is important is that you do different types of questions, right? So whenever we take theory, we do take you through different types of questions. And then if you attend the example sessions and assignments, you will have gone through every possible type of question that has been asked in the previous years. And also even the question that can potentially be asked, okay? So here we are done with analogy.